to secure food, shelter, and safety in a patriarchal society. Jewish tradition, however, emphasized care for family and the less fortunate. And for this reason, and because the famine was over, Naomi decides it's time to go back to Bethlehem. As with most of us, it's in times of distress and sorrow that we turn our consciousness from outer conditions back to the things of spirit and the strength to carry on. So Naomi is leaving, and her daughters-in-law go with her. But at some point, she tells them to go back to their families in Moab. She likely knew that they would not be accepted by the Jewish community and thought they would be better off with their own families. It doesn't say that in there. We're just knowing the traditions of the time, we can sort of, I don't want to use the word assume. What's another word? Infer this. Thank you very much. So she thought they might be better, maybe she thought they would be better off with their own families in their own culture. And perhaps from a metaphysical point of view, she felt the need to let go of any hindering thoughts of a Moab consciousness that might keep her from Bethlehem. Now, at first, both daughters-in-law say no, they're going to go with her. But Naomi insists, and Orpah finally gives a teary goodbye and leaves. Orpah represents a youthful zeal, more for the things of self, you know how we were in our youth, and than the things of spirit. And so she leaves Naomi. Perhaps we can understand this as we think of times in our own lives when human experience was a catalyst for us to release the immature things of self for a deeper, more spiritually mature understanding of life. So Orpah leaves, but Ruth continues to object, saying, "Don't press me to leave you, to turn back from following you. For where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people. Your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May Yahweh do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts you and I." This is the famous quote that gives credence to the story of Ruth's being one of love and devotion. But is it really a story of love and devotion? Or is it only, maybe that's a better question, a story of love and devotion? Something in Ruth urged her to go with Naomi. But what? Her family, her people, her language, her religion, her culture, her life was in Moab. Love may have led the way, but what was the catalyst? Or was it something else besides love? Would you do it? Literally leave everything you know for the unknown. And yet, in some way, isn't that what we do when we embark on a spiritual journey, seeking something higher, to be something more? So here was an opportunity for Ruth to go back to her family, instead of to a land where she would know no one but Naomi, a land where she might be shunned as an outsider. So did she really love her mother-in-law so much that she would risk that? Or was it perhaps a choice made for survival? Either way, it was a courageous choice that took an inner strength to embark upon. Then you can ask questions like, well, what might Ruth's home of origin been like that she didn't want to go back? Maybe the unknown in Bethlehem was the lesser of two evils in her mind. Perhaps she would have been shunned at home for marrying a Jew. Or maybe there were other things at home that kept her away. Unhealthy relationships, we don't really know. And part of it may very well have been love and devotion. I mean, they lived together for 10 years, and they were both grieving the loss of a husband and a son. There's a lot of things we don't know because they're not addressed in the story. But for whatever reason, Ruth chose to go with Naomi, and this causes a stir in the town of Bethlehem. Now they have to figure out how to survive. Have you ever had a part of your body consciousness or your human consciousness merge with your spiritual consciousness, causing a stir? Yeah. I just heard somebody take a deep breath and sigh. Of course you have. That's why you're here, to reconcile them and integrate them. And that very process itself causes a stir in consciousness. Now, when Naomi and Ruth arrive in Bethlehem, it's during the barley harvest. And there was a provision in Jewish law that allowed the poor, widows, and strangers to gather any grain left over from the harvest. So Ruth told Naomi that she was going to go do this, even though it would put her in danger. In danger because gathering grain was physically demanding. It required a great deal of physical and mental strength to put in those long hours of hard work in the sun. There was the risk of being verbally abused or denied access to the grain because she was a foreigner. Or, for that same reason, she could have been taken advantage of to exploit her labor unfairly. She was working among men, following behind them to pick up the grain being left behind. Being a foreign woman, alone in the fields, further heightened her vulnerability to harassment or assault. And if she did encounter hostility or exclusion from the fields, she risked failing to gather enough food for herself and Naomi, which was critical for their survival. Lucky for Ruth, she ended up on the land of Boaz, a relative of Naomi. Boaz saw her working in the field and asked the man in charge of the harvesters who she was. And he told Boaz that she was Naomi's daughter-in-law and had asked to gather the leftovers. Now, Boaz knew that Naomi was his kin and approached Ruth and told her to stay on his land, not go on any other lands gathering, to gather behind his women gatherers so that she would be safe. He welcomed her to drink from the well his men drank from, and he assured her that the men would not bother her. Basically, he took her under his protection. And she was very grateful. And she asked him, why would you do this for a foreigner? Because she knew that the culture was for Jews not to mingle with them. Boaz told her, all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told me. How you left your father and mother and your native land and came to a people, hear the metaphysics, that you did not know before. May the Lord reward you for your deeds. Then he invited her to eat with him and the other harvesters before she went back to work. And after they ate, he instructed his men to let her take the standing sheaves and to leave behind extra bundles for her to pick up as well. Boaz represents a willingness to act and the richness and power of thought, which balances our feminine or feeling nature, enhancing its strength and character, opening the way for a higher consciousness to evolve, to emerge and evolve. So here, united with Boaz, Ruth is given more and more of the substance of spirit. He gave her more grain. And that substance is represented by a consciousness of Bethlehem. Now, when Ruth got home, Naomi wanted to know how her day was, and she discovered that Ruth had ended up in Boaz's field. And Naomi explained to her that Boaz was her nearest relative, and the next thing we know, Naomi takes matters into her own hands. She says, my daughter, I need to seek some security for you so that it may be well with you. Now here is our kinsman Boaz with those young women you have been working. See, he is winnowing, which means sifting, barley tonight at the threshing floor. Now wash and anoint yourself and put on your best clothes and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, observe the place where he lies. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do. Now, wait a minute. What does this sound like? Okay, Naomi has decided to get a husband for Ruth, to seek some security for her. And I'm sure it has not escaped Naomi's mind that there would be security in it for her as well. And it was Jewish tradition at that time for a widow to marry her husband's brother, who would then take on the dead brother's responsibility for his wife and any children if there were any. And that would be a way of preserving and protecting the dead brother's inheritance. But given that both Naomi's husbands had died, that was not possible for Ruth. There was no brother to marry. So the next best and acceptable solution was for Ruth to marry the nearest relative so that she and Naomi would be taken care of. So Ruth does as she is told, stranger in a foreign land that she is, and she sneaks in to lie down at Boaz's feet after he goes to sleep. Now, Boaz wakes up very surprised to find her there, and it sounds like she sort of offers herself to him when she says, "Spread your cloak over your servant, for you are next of kin." Yet Boaz does not take advantage of the situation. Instead, he blesses her for what she has said and done. Interesting, right? Now, my guess is it might be because what she has done is in line with Jewish tradition. And even though she is not a Jew, she has done it at the request of Naomi, who is. And Ruth probably also knows that it's their best chance of survival. We could say it took a lot of courage for her to go along with this tradition and offer herself to Boaz. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to sacrifice something for your survival? And would you be willing to do that? Not only as a part of your own survival, but the survival of another. So Boaz tells Ruth, "May you be blessed by the Lord. This last instance of your loyalty is better than the first. Do not be afraid. I will do for you all that you ask, for all the assembly of my people know that you are a worthy woman. Though it's true that I am a near kinsman, there is another more closely related than I. In the morning, if he will act as next of kin for you, good. But if he's not willing, then I will act as next of kin for you." So here is an honorable man. He did not take advantage of Ruth, and he certainly could have. Instead, he praised her for her loyalty to Naomi and her courage to do what was necessary for both their survival. And he told her that everyone in his household knows her as a worthy woman. Now, can you imagine how this must have made her feel? Wondering what people thought of her, a foreigner, not accepted, not included, perhaps feeling like she was prostituting herself for survival? It certainly could have turned out that way. Yet Boaz was telling her that she was worthy. Worthy to be sheltered, worthy to be provided for, worthy to be accepted and cared for. Have you ever felt unworthy? Yeah. It's hard to carry on when we don't feel worthy, isn't it? What would have it done for you at that time had someone told you how truly worthy you are? Next, Boaz says he will help her. He knows he really isn't the next of kin in line to do so, and he's going to take care of that. And he also makes sure that Ruth leaves the threshing floor, where women are not supposed to be, before anyone sees her. Because what would that have said about her? Plus, he gave her even more grain, more substance to take back to Naomi so they could carry on. Now, what happens next is very interesting. Boaz goes to the other next of kin and calls together the town elders to witness what is about to transpire. And he tells the next of kin that Naomi is selling the parcel of land that belonged to our kinsman. So I thought I would tell you and say, buy it in the presence of those sitting here. But if you will not If you will not, tell me, for there is no one prior to you to redeem it, and I come after you. In other words, you have first right of refusal, and I'm next. So the next of kin answers and says, I will redeem it. And then Boaz said, the day you acquire the field from Naomi, you are also acquiring Ruth the Moabite, the widow of the dead man, to maintain the dead man's name on his inheritance. And remember, that's how Jewish law worked for the women to be taken care of, the widows to be taken care of. And the sale of the land that belonged to Naomi's husband and sons comes with responsibility for the son's wife and the husband's wife. So at this, the next of kin said, I cannot redeem it for myself without damaging my own inheritance. Take my right of redemption for yourself, for I cannot redeem it. Huh. Why do you think he changed his mind? My guess is that once he found out Ruth was a Moabite, he didn't want to take on responsibility for her, and or maybe he was afraid he'd be disinherited by his family if he did. Are you getting any sense of prejudice here? And this is still going on how many thousands of years later? So Boaz carries on the tradition, and he and Ruth get married. And they have a son. But wait, guess what happens next? The child is given to Naomi. And the story says that Naomi became his nurse. Now, don't ask me how that can be or what that even means exactly, but that is what is written. And on top of that, it says in Ruth 4:17, the women of the neighborhood went around saying, a son has been born to Naomi. A son has been born to Naomi? How is the child now Naomi's? It doesn't tell us. Now, there could have been a lot of reasons, right? What really happened? It's a big question mark. Did Naomi sort of prostitute Ruth for their survival? Because that's what would she have done if Ruth hadn't gone with her? I don't know. Did Naomi take the child to replace her own son? Or was it for the survival of both women and the child? Because in Jewish culture, the child is to be of whatever faith the mother is. So this child, for it to be really a part of the community and protected, it must be Naomi's, because Ruth is not Jewish. So, and that's not unlike that other tradition of when one brother dies, the other one takes the wife, right? So the child in question was named Obed, and he became the father of Jesse, who became the father of David, which established the lineage of Jesus and a path for the evolution of our consciousness into Christ consciousness. So how interesting that a Moabite woman would be the one to carry the lineage of Jesus, born in a manger, get some connection, and that he came to teach us that we ought to love all people. Love may have led the way for Ruth, but was it the substance of that love? What was the substance of that love? What was the substance of that love? What was the catalyst for that love? And what might it be for us in letting love lead the way in our own lives? Love can lead the way to strength, to survival, to our own power to divinely order our lives when it's united with willingness to act and the rich power of thought. When we follow our hearts to do the next best thing that we can do, in the understanding that we're in at the time with good intent, then despite outer experiences to the contrary, divine order prevails. We might not see it when it's happening. Do you think Ruth and Naomi ever saw the divine order that happened because of the birth of Obed? Order was established even out of the chaos of the times because Ruth followed her heart. So here, how does this play out for us in our lives? Naomi sheltered Ruth and got her married to Boaz so she would be more acceptable to society. What am I willing to do for the welfare of another, a foreigner, a stranger? What am I willing to do for the welfare of my own consciousness? Ruth gave up all she knew to follow Naomi. What am I willing to give up for the survival of another? Do I really believe in the interconnectedness of all life? That if I don't have peace, no one has peace? Really interconnected life. What am I willing to give up to create and maintain such a consciousness? What am I willing to sacrifice for the greater good of humanity, for a bigger purpose than my own? Naomi and Ruth were protecting the lineage of David and Jesus, but they didn't know that. They just followed what was the next best thing for them to do. Am I willing to do something that is good and right from my compassion for the well-being of all life, knowing I will probably never see the fruits of my labor? Or have I even given any attention to this kind of thinking? And what about now? Well, now I'm going to invite you to become quiet and still. To breathe into all this questioning of historical, literal, and metaphysical thinking. And let that breath go and let everything go with it. Breathe in. Exhale. Let go. Perhaps drop your shoulders. Relax your neck. And just be in this moment of time. As I become more and more quiet, and more still, then each breath leads me to the sacred place within. To my connection with all that is. My connection with the Lord of my being as my higher self. My connection with all that is good and pure. With all that can lead me to my good. In this secret place is where my restless heart is quenched in divine love. It's where my hungry mind is fed by divine substance. It's where I am led by love in all that I think, say, and do. Inviting divine order into my life as I make the best choices I can along the way. In this quiet refuge lies my strength to carry on. No matter what the journey may bring, I know that I have all I need within me to succeed. And so I open myself to divine life and I ask, what is mine to do? What is mine to do in contributing to the higher good? Centered in the secret place of my soul, I listen carefully, and then I choose my next best step. I carry on with confidence, even in the midst of chaos. I carry on in joy, fully knowing my worth, brave in the living and the letting go. I carry on cloaked in love. Indecision ceases as I begin to understand that the answer to my survival, to my strength, to the call of my heart is to do all that I do from a consciousness of love. And so I devote myself to what serves the greater good. And I let love lead the way. As I follow my heart in all circumstances, with willingness and thoughtful action, I know that all will be well with my soul. That despite outer experiences to the contrary, divine order will prevail. Everything I need will be revealed as I move forward and act in love. For love is the secret place within. One heart, one soul, one mind. And now I begin to realize the secret is truly no secret at all. The answer to all I think, say, and do is to simply do it in love, willing to move forward, thoughtful with every step. And for the revelation of this truth and its swift manifestation in my life, I am grateful. Amen.
I've searched for many years, I've traveled far and wide to quench a restless thirst and hunger deep inside. The secret of the ages, written up by fools and sages, crept into my hardened heart and would not be denied. Love, love, let the love begin. Love is the secret place within. So humbled that I'd seen, oh what a wondrous find. The secret place inside one heart, one soul, one mind. Found me in my childlike wonder, woken me like rolling thunder. Sometimes it's the simplest things that seem so hard to find. Love, love, let the love begin. Love is the secret place within. And oh, the many years it took to heed this call. What seemed a fortune then now stands just a garden wall. Storms of indecision ceasing, tears of joy instead releasing. I have learned the secret is no secret after all. Love, love, let the love begin. Love is the secret place within. Love is the answer to all things great and small. When you know the secret, it's no secret after all. I have learned the secret is no secret after all.
So I hope that, if nothing else, one of the things that you might have gotten from today is that the Bible can be looked at from so many different angles. When we really immerse ourselves in the stories and we look at them through the eyes of the times in which they were written, metaphysically, even literally as it applies to our human consciousness and our lives as human beings. And then we give it really a lot of thought about how we can apply what we receive from those teachings, from all of them in our lives today. So this week, again, I am going to encourage you to read the book of Ruth, look up the word adversary, and as you're reading that book of Ruth, let it continue to raise questions in your mind. Questions that are left unanswered in the story, but which might bring about a deeper understanding of ourselves and greater inspiration to carry on in our own journey. And have a great week. And now I invite you to look at that wonderful affirmation of abundance that's on your screen and in your bulletin, and join me in that, knowing that as we give, so we receive. And we're going to take this time to practice generosity of spirit joyfully, willingly, lovingly, and cheerfully as we say this affirmation together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I give and all that I receive. And for this, I am grateful. And please let that ring differently for you right now than it has before. Knowing that you are divine love, blessing and multiplying all the ways in which you give and all the ways in which you receive. And then let's repeat that affirmation again together as one. Divine love through us blesses and multiplies all that we give and all that we receive. We affirm that we are divine love, working together to bless and multiply all the ways in which we give and all the ways in which we open ourselves to receive. And for the swift manifestation of these truths in our lives, we are grateful. Amen. Amen. Now I invite you to join us in the peace song and the prayer for protection.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as our Father, brothers all are we. Let me walk with my brother in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Please join us in the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. For wherever we are, God is, and where God is, all is well. And I see you this week asking questions about yourself, about your journey, and embracing your worth, knowing that all of these affirmations are your truth. And have a wonderful week. Amen.
Carry on, treading softly as you go. Carry on, knowing all that you know. Carry on with the confidence of the stars above, for you were born in the radiance of love. Carry on in the joy of your path, never missing a moment to laugh. Hold the hand of a beloved, lean into the wind, and in each other find your shelter again. Carry on as your lives call you forth. Carry on, fully knowing your worth. May you bring to the world what the world needs to know, and be brave in the living, and then let go. Together than apart. Keep country of your heart. When you come to that place where you cannot see, walk on anyway into the sacred mystery. Carry on to thy spirit be true. May the breath of sweet heaven sing in you. Behold all the beauty of both shadow and light, and remember how loved you are tonight. Behold all the beauty in both shadow and the light, and remember how loved you are tonight.